All right, so now it's time to put it all together. Okay. So we do have some options, but I am going to kind of focus in on a few things here. So finding the vertex. So remember the formula for the vertex is x equals negative b over 2a. Then y equals plug in x. Okay, that's what you just practiced on the last lesson. So we did 1. 2, we're going to find our zeros. We're always going to use quadratic formula. We're not going to worry about factoring. If you want to do factoring, you can, but I'll never show it. And then I'm not going to focus on the y-intercept right now. Okay? So let's look at number 1. Okay? So for number 1, I'm going to let's do vertex over here. Okay? So for the vertex, remember I need a and b. So a is going to be 3. B is going to be 6. So x equals negative b, so negative 6 over 2 times a, which is 3. So 2 times 3 on the bottom is 6. Negative 6 divided by 6 is negative 1. Remember to find the y, I got to plug in x. So I have 3 times negative 1 squared plus 6 times negative 1 plus 2 more. Okay? So negative 1 squared is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. And then add 2 more. So 3 and negative 6 makes negative 3. Plus 2 more is negative 1. So my vertex is negative 1, negative 1. Okay, for my zeros, I need to do quadratic formula. So x equals negative b, so that's negative 6, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 36, minus 4 times a is 3. I'm running out of room, let me move over here. Times c is 2, all over 2a, which would be 6. Okay? Alright, so inside my square roots, I need to start off by doing my multiplication. So negative 4 times 3 times 2 is going to be negative 24. And then I add that front 36 to it, and I get 12. So I have negative 6 plus or minus, sorry about that, negative 6 plus or minus radical 12 or square root of 12 over 6. At this point, I need to take the square root of 12, which the square root of 12 is 3.5. So I end up negative 6 plus or minus 3.5 over 6. And I do my plus and my minus. So for plus, I would do negative 6 plus 3.5. And then I would divide that by 6 and get negative 0.42. So negative 0.42. And then I would do my plus. So negative 6 plus 3.5, or sorry, my minus. I already did my plus. So negative 6 minus 3.5. And then I want to divide that by 6. And I end up with negative 1.6. Okay. So now let's put this all together on the graph. So we're going to have to make our own axes here. Okay, so remember my vertex is an ordered pair, so that's going to go on the graph at that point. So negative 1, down 1. So there's my vertex. And then my zeros always go on the x-axis. So for these points, I'm going to go left about a half for the negative 0.42. And then I'm going to go a little more than negative 1.5 for the negative 1.6. So it's going to be my tiny little parabola here. Just connect those with a parabola, and you're done. Okay? Alright. So you know how to do all the stuff. You know how to do the vertex. You know how to do the zeros. You just got to practice putting them together. So let's go ahead. Let's pause the video. I'll have you go ahead and do number 2. And then once you get done with number 2, you can unpause and I will help you out. Okay? Alright, so let's start with vertex. So I need a and b. So x equals negative b. So b is going to be 2, so negative b is negative 2 over 2 times a, which is 1. So negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. For my y value, I need to plug that back in. So y equals negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 minus 15. So negative 1 squared is going to be positive 1. 2 times negative 1 is minus 2, and then minus 15 more. So 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Minus 15 more is negative 16. So y equals negative 16. So my vertex is negative 1, negative 16. Okay? So that's probably going to be down off of the it's probably going to be down off the graph, but that's okay. We'll deal with that in a second. Okay? Let's scroll over a little bit more, and let's go ahead and do quadratic formula. So now I'm going to do zeros. Okay, so x equals negative b, that's negative 2, plus or minus the square root. B squared is going to be 4, minus 4 times a is 1, times c was negative 15. Okay, so now I'm ready for my, oh, I forgot all over 2a. All over 2 times a was just 1, so that's just 2. Okay, so now inside my radical, I need to do negative 4 times 1 times negative 15. That's positive 60. Add 4 more to that, and that's 64. So I have negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 64 over 2. The square root of 64 is 8. So I have negative 2 plus or minus 8 over 2. Then I got to do my plus and my minus. So for plus, I have negative 2 plus 8 would be positive 6. Positive 6 divided by 2 is 3. And then my minus, negative 2 minus 8 is negative 10. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. So these are my two zeros. This is my vertex. And now I'm ready to graph. Okay? Alright, so let's go ahead and make our axes. Okay, and then let's graph. So negative 1, negative 16. So I'm going to go left 1 and down 16. I'm just going to put my dot here. I know it's going to go down off the graph. And then for my zeros, I have 3 and negative 5. So for positive 3, I go right 3 on the x-axis. For negative 5, I go left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on my y-axis, or on the x-axis. Then I connect them with a parabola, and I'm done. That's all there is to it, guys. Okay? So find your vertex just like you know how. Find your zeros just like you know how. And then connect them together with a parabola.